Welcome back. So Benue State is in our line of vision yet again for perhaps the umpteenth time in the last couple of weeks. This time around, it has to do with what seems to be a brewing constitutional crisis in the state polity following the recommendation of the suspension of the state chief judge by the State House of Assembly. And don't forget that that also elicited the suspension of 13 other lawmakers who opposed the suspension of the state chief judge. Of course, we heard the speaker say that, during the proceedings, that some of them even raised both hands to endorse the recommendation of the suspension of the state chief judge. But the other lawmakers have insisted that they are opposed to it because they did not follow the constitution, the laid down procedure for the removal of the state chief judge. And we also know that the NJC has also made its position clear, that the state assembly has not followed the constitution as far as the removal of the state chief judge is concerned. Let's get perspectives on this matter, and joining us on the program is Senate Minority Leader Senator Abba Moro to weigh in on this. Good morning, and thank you for joining us, Senator Moro, on the program.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be with you.
So let's start with your gleanings, your perception of what the State House of Assembly has done. It has hinged its decision on Section 212 of the Constitution, that it has stayed within its rightful place to remove the state chief judge. What are your thoughts on this?
The Constitution, as you're well aware, is the ground norm of the nation. That is the law, the supreme law of the land. And various authorities, institutions, have said that the State House of Assembly has not followed the laid down provisions of the Constitution. And so I stand by that conclusion, because if you look at what transpired on the day in question, you will agree with me that the whole process was hurriedly undertaken by the State House of Assembly, and in the process, certain fundamental procedures were not followed. If you want to look at it, yes, Section 292, 1A2 provides that the state governor can remove the state chief judge if he is found infirm mentally or physically, or as a result of misconduct or the contravention of the Code of Conduct Act. And so, if you look at it from that perspective, it presupposes that you must determine that this man is incapable of functioning as a state chief judge as a result of those conditions. And Section B of the same Section 292 provides that the state governor can only remove the state chief judge on the recommendation of the National Judicial Council. And that should be, in the first place, upon the determination that the man is no longer fit to be in that office. These conditions have not been met. And let me state clearly here that this Constitution has several provisions that deal with the same subject matter. And you cannot read one section in isolation of the other. And so, for the State House of Assembly to hinge its action on Section 21A2 and recommend or address the governor to remove the state chief judge, certainly is like putting the cart before the horse. And if you are following carefully the events in Benue State, you also want to recall that only yesterday, the chief press secretary of the governor said that they have submitted the allegations against the chief judge to the National Judicial Council to take disciplinary action against the state chief judge. And like I said, that is like putting the cart before the horse, because that is what they should have done in the first place. They should have either the House of Assembly or the National Judicial Council should have ordinarily carried out an investigation of the allegations against the state chief judge and come to a conclusion that he's guilty before they recommend his removal. In this case, this was not done, and it's unacceptable.
So, Senator Moro, let's try to understand again a bit further what is happening within the State Assembly itself, because one of the House leaders speaking on our sister program just last Friday was saying that the other 13 members who are now suspended, some of them had voted, but perhaps because some of their paymasters reached out to them later and they were under pressure, that was why they now organized a counter press conference later on to state their position that they're opposed to the suspension of the state chief judge. What are your thoughts on these seeming political undertone that is coloring the now controversial suspension of the state chief judge?
Let me tell you, it's like the kettle calling the pot black. They too we are under pressure to suspend the state chief judge. And from the information that is available to us on the public domain now, they were even alleged to have been compromised. And so, if 13 members say, look, we didn't vote, there is no evidence before us here to show that they voted. The result that we have is simply that they have 23 people who have voted to remove the state chief judge, which is being economical with the truth. Because the truth of the matter, from the information in the public domain, is that on that day, only 31 members were in attendance in the House of Assembly to attend the plenary. And from what is available to us on the public domain now, 13 of them say, no, we didn't vote. They just put our name there. And look, let me tell you, attendance register of members who have come to attend the plenary is not synonymous with voting records. So let the majority leader or whoever is saying that from both sides of his mouth come forward with the record of the proceedings of that day and show that 23 members voted. In any case, even if 23 members voted without conceding that, where are the others? What is the record of the others who didn't vote? Where is the record of anybody who abstained? Because ordinarily, the speaker, as the presiding officer, wouldn't vote unless there is a tie. And so, mathematically, if you take away 13 plus the speaker who didn't vote from the people that attended the plenary that day, what do you have? You don't have the number. So, ab initio, that motion had failed. Because if you don't have 2/3 from any record that is available to us, then certainly that motion has failed. And there shouldn't have been a recommendation on the failed motion to the governor for him to remove the state chief judge. In any case, if you look at section 271, the National Judicial Council recommends the appointment of a chief judge. The National Judicial Council, by the same section, exercises different control over judges appointed by either the president or the governor. And so in this case, the National Judicial Council was not informed, was not involved, and didn't participate in the process. And so, ab initio, therefore, any action that had been taken on the chief judge on that fateful day certainly is unconstitutional and illegal.
All right, Senator Moro, let's expand it a bit further, because it's difficult to believe that lawmakers or the government that has an attorney general and the lawmakers for and against all of this do not understand the constitutional process. Because according to the Constitution, whether you're quoting 271, 292, all of the section that has to do with this law, there's a tripartite role, if you will, between the governor, NJC, and the State House of Assembly. One will make recommendation, which will get the confirmation or disapproval by the House of Assembly. So when you look at the entire spectrum, it looks like implicitly NJC hires and fires, because if NJC say go, you cannot say I can't go. If NJC stay, you cannot say you can't stay. But now what has happened has happened. So my question is, one, putting the cart before the horse. That's on one hand. On the other hand, not being able to put together a number of quorum to even be able to exercise, accepting without conceding that they even got the NJC's approval. What do you think is really playing out here? What is the big picture that we're not seeing here?
Well, I think that from what has come out very clearly from the actions of the governor and the government of Benue State, as soon as that recommendation was made, the issues that were raised before the State House of Assembly were not investigated. There's no record that they were investigated. And don't forget that local government elections just took place in Benue State. And from all indications, from what people say and have seen, there was no election. There were just selections of persons by the government. And this issue is being challenged in a tribunal. Hurriedly, after purportedly removing the state chief judge, the government went and heaped piles of sand in the entrance of the state high court to prevent the state chief judge from entering his office, to prevent the electoral tribunal from sitting. And in addition to that, from information available to us, the whole place was barricaded by thugs that honestly prevented any activity on that day. And so, if you look at it from that perspective, and if you look at it from the perspective of the utterances of the state chief judge, he said that he was pressured, excuse me, to put particular judges on the tribunal, and that he refused the pressure and appointed people that, in his opinion, would be able to dispense justice. And that from that day, he had become enemy number one of the governor. And so what is playing out, therefore, definitely is more than meets the eye in the circumstances.
Moro, the NJC has given their position, and I'm sure that, but as it's, let's say, before we go to the next leg, it has to do with security from where you sit. What is, the NJC has said that Justice Ikpambese remains the chief judge of the state. But from what you know and what you're hearing, is the government relating with the chief judge? Has the chief judge resumed his duty? Is he doing his job without being stopped or limited by anyone?
Well, I do know that the chief judge is going about his duties. Apparently, by yesterday, he attended some functions, even though outside the High Court. And on this matter, virtually all the High Court judges in Benue State and people of goodwill agree that the chief judge remains the chief judge. And like you said, the NJC has said the chief judge remains the chief judge of Benue State. And so anybody that is going to act contrary to that directive from the NJC certainly is going against the law. And definitely at the appropriate time, the law will take its normal course. And so for now, the tribunal sat, and of course they requested the chairman of the tribunal to give an adjournment because of insecurity. And you know, the tribunal is a court of special concern because they have 180 days within which to determine all cases before them. And I can tell you from what is unfolding now that the tactics of the state governor and the government of Benue State is to cleverly ensure that the tribunal does not finish its case before the 180 days. And of course, if the tribunal fails to finish its job within the 180 days, the case is dead at that level. And so I think all these things point to the fact that at the center of all this impasse is the local government election and the cases before the tribunal. They want to scuttle it. They want to make sure that justice is not served. And the first port of a call, of course, is to antagonize the state chief judge who is responsible for appointing tribunal judges. I hope sincerely that we will be able to cross this impasse very quickly, because it will be a very serious dent on our judicial system. It will be a very big dent on our democracy. And I can assure you that with the unfolding scenario, the National Assembly certainly will make proposals for the amendment of the Constitution or the Electoral Act, so as to remove this ugly situation where somebody can hold the whole tribunal to ransom, ensure that 180 days passes and there is no judgment in the cases before them.
That's an interesting dimension to this conversation, with a lot of implications that we can even begin to talk about, and we'll dedicate an entire hour to it and we would not have exhausted it. But some would say that where Benue is concerned, to other matters now, that there are bigger fish to fry besides this intractable political crisis within either the state government or the political party, the leading political party in the state. Bigger fish in terms of security. Senator Moro, what are your thoughts on the handling of security matters in the state? The state government says it is not overwhelmed, that it is in control of the situation, but stories from Benue are to the contrary. What exactly is going on from where you stand?
That is the crux of the matter. That is the crux of the matter, that many concerned Benue citizens, including those of us here, are worried that the governor is misplacing priorities. Like you have rightly noted, our people are being killed by the day. We have several internally displaced persons in Benue State that have not been assisted to go back to their ancestral homes. As a result of this general insecurity in Benue State, our food security is at stake. Lives are being lost by the day. Kidnapping is on the rise. And you don't find a state governor issuing even statements of concern, let alone visit these areas and these scenes of these ugly situations. And here we are, haggling over political positions. And so that is what you find when an individual prizes his personal interest above the common good. And it's very sad and unfortunate that it is happening in Benue State. Like you have rightly noted, the governor is confronting all fights from all directions. It's either he's fighting with his political party, or he's fighting with members of his political party, or he's fighting imaginary enemies around the place, and accusing people of being responsible for wanting to destabilize the state. Meanwhile, the unconstitutional acts, the illegal acts of the governor, are a foundation for the instability that is claiming to be unfolding in Benue State.
But Senator Moro,
I think that... Yeah.
Some would say that, his political rival is contending the position of leader of the party in the state with him, and they're not allowing him, to make decisions as the leader of the party. Some say it's a rivalry between him and the secretary of the state government. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, the whole idea of leadership is an ego journey that is unnecessary. He is governor of Benue State, for crying out loud. What leadership does he need anymore? He's in charge of the whole state. Everything in the state is under him. Condensing these things, putting them together, creating synergy and harmony for the development and progress of Benue State is his responsibility. So why is he stoking fights? It's unnecessary. The SGF is in Abuja here, so pretending over government affairs here. He is in Benue, so pretending over the affairs of Benue, the security of lives and property of the Benue people, the governance of the Benue people. So why is he going on the ego journey of leader of party, leader of party? As it is now, given what is unfolding in Benue State? Can he combine the management of the party with the management of Benue State and the government? As things are now, from all these things that have been happening, have you heard the Attorney General of Benue State coming out to issue a legal opinion? Instead, is there these social media people, the Chief Press Secretary, that are issuing statements that are far from the legal implications of what is on ground. And that tells you the crisis that is in Benue State, that the Attorney General of Benue State, who should be able to come up with an opinion either to NJSC or to the Benue public or the Nigerian public, has maintained a very golden silence.
Senator Moro, apparently there's a lot of work.
And so doesn't that make any sense to anybody here?
Senator Moro, apparently there's a lot of work that the elders have to come into the room to move the state forward. But as in closing, let's leave Benue for a moment to go to the National Assembly. You're the leader of the opposition. Sometimes Nigerians have blamed the opposition for being ineffective, for not standing up for them when it comes to certain maybe pieces of legislation. Sometimes people have accused you and your colleagues of being rubber stamped. I know you're familiar with some of these names, but where I'm going to with all of this is the fact that, first, I would like you to speak to what is going on within your political party. I know that the Senate President once in a while teases you and some of your colleagues as to which faction of the PDP do you belong to. Is there a faction in the PDP? One. On the other hand, the issue that involves Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, when she was talking about how she's not been given opportunity to speak, and then changing her statement, her voice will be shut down even further. How much is you as a leader of the opposition defending your people and defending, your people now, your members of your party, and defending the people of Nigeria when, for instance, the APC comes with legislation that you feel that doesn't sit down well with the people?
Well, thank you very much. And like you said, and has been said much earlier, some of these issues require long times for us to dissect very seriously some of the things that are on the table. But here we are, rubber stamp. I was in the 9th Senate, we are called rubber stamp. I'm in the 10th Senate, we are called rubber stamp by a session of the Nigerian media and community. And it is simply the fact that we are not doing what they want us to do. And I asked somebody, what is a rubber stamp? The Nigerian people have elected a government. The government is bringing out proposals for us to scrutinize and approve policies for moving Nigeria forward. And to the best of my knowledge, that is exactly what we're doing. I know that in certain clients, and even in Nigeria, there has always been call, impeach the president, impeach the person here, impeach that person here, raising the temperature of politics unnecessarily. I think that what many people do not know is that the result of some of the things that you are seeing here is a result of our activities within the system, synergizing, trying to accommodate bipartisan positions, and coming out with policies that at least are implementable, that seek to mitigate the predicament that we find ourselves in here. And so, to the other leg of your question, I think that PDP at the moment has its own share of crisis. It's not unique to PDP. What is happening in PDP is happening in APC. What is happening in PDP is happening in Labour Party. That is to tell you the fragility of our democracy, the fragility of our party system. It's a very unfortunate development, but I can tell you that we are working very seriously towards ensuring some level of understanding amongst the opposing tendencies of the political party, or the PDP as it were. Of course, understandably, the Senate President once in a while talks about what faction, what this and the rest of it. Yes, of course, he can say that because of the contending tendencies within the PDP. But like I always point out, there are also contending tendencies in the APC. But he is the presiding officer. I cannot ask him the floor of the Senate which faction do you belong in APC and rest of them? It will be a joke taken too far. Well, I can tell you that we're working seriously towards creating some level of harmony in the system so that we don't raise the temperature, don't raise the tension unnecessarily. I think Nigerians are hurting enough than to come to terms with political leaders haggling and confronting themselves unnecessarily. For Natasha and the Senate President, if you saw what transpired on that day, you would have watched that I was moving between the Senate President and Senator Natasha to calm the situation. There are rules, but there are exceptions. And to every rule, there are always exceptions. And I can assure you that we are taking steps to ensure that there is some level of understanding between not just Senator Natasha and the Senate President, but all senators and the Senate President.
All right, Senator Moro, on your comment about telling the Senate President that which faction does he belong to, perhaps besides it, you know, being a joke taking too far, just might earn you a suspension, as we have seen typically in the recent past in the Senate. It's been an interesting time having this conversation with you, sir. We've been talking with Senator Abba Patrick Moro, the Senate Minority Leader and Senator representing Benue South Senatorial District. Thank you so much, sir, for your time on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
And from here, we're staying with the constitutional crisis in Benue State, but we'll be taking legal perspectives now. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.